Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We are back on another episode of a daily recap. And folks, it is Nvidia earnings day. It is Super Bowl for all of the nerds that invest their money in the global capital equity markets. This is the biggest stock on the planet. It is the most important day, one could argue, for the stock market, especially during the Q1 earnings season, which is basically coming to an end, and Nvidia crushed it. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you guys Steve, Tanner, and Jose and myself talking about this. I think that's probably the best way to kind of recap this, because we spent a good 20 minutes after the earnings discussing what we thought about the earnings, what was good, what was bad. And so I think for those that hadn't seen the live stream, that recap of all four of our opinions together will be very valuable for people. Before I share that clip, I just wanted to give a quick overview of my high-level thoughts. That's what this entire episode is going to be dedicated to, Nvidia. But also, we got some breaking news. It is about 7:30 p.m. Eastern that I am recording this daily recap right now, and we just got... I don't have a lot of details for you. I'll have a lot more updates tomorrow in the market open as we get more details. But we just got something that's exploding futures. The NASDAQ is up almost 2% right now. The reason for that is based on what you're seeing on the screen right here. The U.S. Court of International Trade, which is one of the federal courts, has just ruled that President Trump lacks the authority under economic emergency laws to implement broad-based global tariffs as per Axios. So you had a court come out today, literally after Nvidia crushed earnings, and said, yeah, those liberation tariffs that Trump was talking about, under constitutional law, he's not allowed to implement any of it. And the markets are going crazy right now. I don't know if this is going to hold up tomorrow when we wake up in the morning, but the reason the market's up right now across the entire board, indices, individual stocks, etc., is because if he can't actually implement the Liberation Day tariffs, which, by the way, he was never going to do anyway, because we were negotiating the 10%, now the 90-day pause, all that stuff. So I never thought we were going to tariff Zimbabwe by 40%. But the point is, the courts are now saying legally he doesn't have the ability to do this. Now, Trump's going to sue back. He's going to appeal. So this is going to be back and forth litigation. But if it's not going to go anywhere because it's going to be stuck in litigation, and it's going to take 3 years for them to implement the tariffs, by then Trump is going to be gone as president, or we're going to be in a cycle for 2028. So, I mean, this is pretty incredible to see happening right after Nvidia earnings come out, but it is helping Nvidia. It's helping the entire stock market because the market loves that you can't actually implement these Liberation Day tariffs. And it is going to be very interesting to see what Mr. Trump has to say about this going into tomorrow. So that was the breaking news update that we got just after the bell. Okay, quick thoughts on Nvidia. I think they crushed it. The only reason there might be some level of negative reaction tomorrow is because their Q2 guidance was $45 billion versus $53 billion. Why is it down by $8 billion? China. So the analysts were expecting $45.8 billion. They came in at $45 billion. So they missed by about $800 million. But it would have been $53 billion if they had the ability to sell into China. Now, the biggest thing, or at least my takeaway from the call, and we'll talk about this in the clip that you guys see in a second, is Jensen's relationship with China. The first 30 seconds, and with Trump, of the earnings call is Jensen basically making a political statement that says, hey, China's catching up, and we can either be the most dominant AI company coming from America, or we can allow China to catch up. And so I think the core takeaway that I got from the call is that because China's catching up, we need to really be on our toes. And it was kind of a message to Trump as well. $44 billion in revenues, up 70% year over year, 81 cents of EPS versus 76 cents expected. They beat on revenue and EPS. $14 billion of shares repurchased, $3.8 billion in record gaming revenues, which is up 48% year over year, and then 39.1 data center revenues, 39.1 billion. That's slightly lower than 39.2 in terms of expectations, but that's also up 73% year over year. Again, their margins at 61% were worse than the previous quarters at 70% because of China. They said that's going to be back to normal in the coming quarters. And their net income margins was at like 42% versus 55%. Again, that is also because of China. So the takeaway is AI is not going anywhere. Jensen says there's going to be $1 trillion of CapEx annually that is spent by the end of the decade, 2030. The hyperscalers alone are doing like $350 billion. If you believe him, and you believe in humanoids, self-driving, all the different nuances, AGI, this new revolution that we're in that's not stopping at ChatGPT 4, but's probably going to get to ChatGPT 20 in the next decade, then you're going to need more compute. You're going to need more chips. You're going to need more NVIDIA. And I can't be more proud of this earnings outside of the guidance miss, but that's a China thing. If that wasn't a China thing, then I think this earnings would be more than spectacular. It's already amazing. It's just they have to navigate China. And if they do navigate China, if it's NVIDIA just being used as a pawn inside of this overall negotiation that eventually gets resolved and NVIDIA can then sell into China, I think NVIDIA is going to be seen still as cheap, even at the 140 range, which it's at currently right now after hours. All right. Major earnings. Congrats to all shareholders. Hopefully we can continue this pump and maintain it going into tomorrow and over the coming months. Here's Steve, Jose, Tanner, and I breaking down NVIDIA's earnings.
I wasn't that impressed. Here's why. Incredible quarter by all standards. There are things I'm seeing in the numbers that I'm not fond of. I do think it's a blip. I think it's going to be hard for this to get past 145 tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 136, 137. But the next couple of quarters, I think this is going to do very well. I don't think that this holds. And the numbers that I'm seeing that I don't like is the quarter over quarter numbers, not the year over year. Look, we knew year over year was going to be great because it's expanded so much, but quarter over quarter on a guidance level, you're going down to 2.1% quarter over quarter growth next quarter. That's a far cry from the established range in this quarter and the previous quarter, Q4 2024, in their thinking, because when they report Q4 2025, they had 12.11% quarter over quarter growth and then 12.03. That just became a fraction, a very small fraction quarter over quarter. Now, even if Jensen is sandbagging and they do 47 billion, that's still 6.5% quarter over quarter growth. And you have margin compression. Net income was 42.6% this quarter. Last quarter is 56%. They haven't had a quarter under 50% net income margin since October 2023. So,
well, you know the reason for all of this.
I know the reason.
Right? It's China.
It's China. It's bigger expenses because they're building things out. It's multiple things. But after nitpicking, I do think Nvidia will be the biggest company in the world. I think it will continue to get bigger. And I think that we are just scratching the surface on how much compute we need. And I don't think people truly understand what is coming down the pipe. I will be buying more, but I think that we may see a little bit of a retracement before we see the next leg up. What was interesting is they absolutely believe in themselves because they murdered the dip. I mean, they increased their buybacks year over year by 48.5%.
Yeah.
I mean, they truly murdered that dip. They increased buybacks on a year over year basis by 4.6 billion. So they're putting their cash to use across the board. And I think sky's the limit. I just think it's going to be difficult the next couple of days. I don't think we're going to see what all of us want to see.
So what I heard was, what I'm going to say is going to piss Tanner off. Nvidia is going to be the biggest and most important company in the world, and I'm buying more. Okay, I think we're fine.
Yeah, that hook that you had did not land because
because I didn't think this quarter was spectacular to get things moving past 150 or all-time highs anytime soon.
Yeah, but I don't think any of us expected that big a move. I mean, we're happy if we can even hold 140. Jose, let me get to you. Anything on the call that Jensen said that surprised you?
What surprised me? First, that Blackwell is now 70% of all of revenue, so its Hopper is easily coming out, and Blackwell is becoming pretty strong. They added Google and Meta to Spectrum X. That's pretty good. I mean, we did see Arista stock kind of move negative to that. Another thing, I have a lot of things here, but the other one was the shipments of GB300 are expecting this quarter. Analysts were actually expecting that for quarter 3, but he actually said GB300 is expecting late quarter 2. So that's overall, in my opinion, bullish. Now, if I can, to Steve's point of the sequential growth here for Nvidia, obviously number one is China, but unfortunately for this industry, there is another cap that's really stopping Nvidia to grow at rapid levels, and it's just the manufacturing capabilities. You can only grow that capability so much every quarter. We've seen it from TSMC, we've seen it from all these other players that they're building capacity, and now you're playing at the laws of big numbers. So if you can only add about $4 billion in revenue each quarter due to the manufacturing capabilities, sequentially you're going to continue to see kind of that weakness in the quarter numbers. But I would say that's more of a manufacturing issue opposed to like Nvidia demand issues.
Tanner, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the highlight of the call, obviously they showcased a lot of the things that were going well, but someone put it in the comments, but I think it was true. This was a call that was directly towards regulators and potentially even Trump himself. He's worried that the export bans are going to backfire on the US, and obviously it's a large part of their business, or was a large part of their business. So honestly, the way that I'm looking at this is a lot of the bearish points are already priced in. I don't see how it could get much worse than completely blocking Nvidia's ability to sell. The potential catalysts or changes in regulation probably only go to benefit Nvidia going forward. I don't know if you guys have different opinions on that. Can it get worse from here for regulations on Nvidia chips?
Well, can it get worse? Yes. Is it going to get worse? Probably not.
Well, I mean, yes, it can get worse, but
Probably
it doesn't
not.
look like that's the way they're moving.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you can see right here, Jensen said basically and Tanner's right. It was a message to Trump politically. I mean, the first 30 seconds of his statement was, hey, China's catching up. And if you guys want to let Huawei catch up, then be our guest. But if you kind of want Nvidia to be on top, an American company that cares about American values, you probably need to stop this export control stuff.
Well, we should want everything built on the American tech stack. That's the most important thing. I mean, I think we can all agree that if it's between the two, it benefits America and American companies if the number one stack is American products and software across the board.
Can I read a quote from Jensen?
Yeah, go for it.
The U.S. has based its policy on the assumption that China cannot make AI chips. That assumption was always questionable, and now it's clearly wrong. China has enormous manufacturing capabilities. In the end, the platform that wins, the AI developer wins AI. Export controls should strengthen U.S. platforms, not drive half of the world's AI talent to rivals. That's crazy. A strong statement.
It's well said, though.
It is well said.
It's very well said.
The thing that I found a little bit weird was it started off Jensen with that statement kind of going with battling the US government restrictions, but then later on there was a question about China and he kind of said that there was a plan behind it. So it's like, where do you fall? You're trying to say that we shouldn't do this, or is there a plan that you're following through? So that to me threw a little bit of a mixed signal, and it made that original entry point feel a little bit weaker. So if there was that I don't know if it's anything we should read into, but
he's trying to kiss the ring without fully kissing it, but also making sure he smooches with it a little bit.
Yeah. He said, you're wrong. This is dumb. Your Excellency. Like, I'm not trying to talk shit, but this is bad. And, but obviously he's not going to talk trash about Trump.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he said he has a plan, but then he also said, hey, if the plan includes not letting us to sell to China, it's a crappy plan, is kind of talking from both perspectives there. So the analyst had a lot of questions about guidance and how to factor that in. I think the last question, Jensen really didn't give a response, and you could tell in the chat he was hesitating. People could realize he was stuttering over his words. He said we have nothing to announce in regards to China. Steve, I'll give it to you first. Is that a real concern that Nvidia shareholders should be worried about when it comes to China revenues?
If you're a short-term shareholder and you wanted to see 150, 160, yes. If you're a long-term shareholder, no. That's not going to matter. I mean, look, you're in a position where China can catch up in certain aspects, and Nvidia can't scale up or down, as Jensen said, at least 3 times on the call. But there's so much more demand, and we're scratching the surface. We are in the infancy. This is not a 2 or 3 year play. This is a 10 or 20 year play at this point. And the TAM, I think, is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. So I don't think this is a reason for bulls to worry, especially with Nvidia buying back the amount of shares they're buying. I mean, at this rate, they'll probably do 85 to 88 billion in net income this year, which is tremendous when you think about where they've been 2 years ago. And people should really focus on the fact that no company has ever expanded profitability at the rate that Nvidia has, and they're still growing it. I mean, they've done something that's absolutely incredible.
Bro, did you see the free cash flow? I mean, this is
No,
Crazy.
I didn't see the free cash flow, Tanner.
It is pretty
I
incredible.
know he's joking. He definitely did.
Yeah, and I mean, dude, they're growing 70% top line, bro. This is a company that
Incredible.
is still like companies can barely grow 20%, 15%. They're doing 70%.
And this will not be a situation where they're not growing top line. No matter what they put out, there is demand to buy it. And every company that's a hyperscaler is in a prisoner's dilemma. Whatever Nvidia puts out that is better than the previous generation, they have to buy, because if they don't buy it and their competitor does, they fall behind. Nvidia is in a win-win situation.
Yeah, absolutely. If
yeah,
I can make comments really quickly on the China comments that they're not working on anything.
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe that. I think we're seeing a lot of sources saying that they do want to make some powered down version of Blackwell, these sort of things. That could fall under what he said today, that, Hopper is done. Maybe they're making some sort of B20 chip where they're making a powered down, maybe lower memory version of the Blackwell architecture. That could be interesting. And maybe for political reasons, they don't want to say that they're working on it until it's finished. I'm not sure, but we did hear timelines on that it's expected around June or July. From rumors, by the way.
Yeah, I think, I've seen the same rumors, Tanner. My best guess here, what's going to happen is, right now, for example, if we look at the restrictions in China, you have pretty much two. You have kind of like the top level, which are like the H100s or the Blackwell equivalent now. Now there's like the weaker down version of like the B20, of the H20 and so on, that just kind of came in. I think if I was to make a bold guess here, is if there are some plans or trade deals with China and the United States, that second tier is going to be used as a trading mechanism. That B20, that B40. I don't think we're going to ever see kind of like a trade deal happen with like the full-on AI chip, but I do believe there is that potential now that is off the table. Kind of going with the taco trade comment, where we're using kind of like the H20 as the restriction right now. But if you come to the table with us on a form of trade deal, the B20 or the B40 can go back to your market. But I don't. So I think there is some truth to that Blackwell architecture, and Nvidia just doesn't want to share it with us right now. So I like that point, Tanner.
You're also right. It would definitely be called the B40.
Tanner, do you have a prediction on their 2026, since this is the fiscal year 26, free cash flow for Nvidia?
Full year?
Yeah.
No, I haven't really thought about it too much. I'm sure it gets pretty close to 100 billion, though. Like,
I think it's going to exceed. I think it's going to be 108.
Yeah, that'll be pretty incredible.
It's going to be one of the few companies that ever in the history of the market exceeds 100 billion of free cash flow. And at this rate, they're going to continue to exceed it year over year. And let's keep in mind what Apple's done. Apple hasn't grown revenue, but they buy back so many shares that EPS jumps. What do you think happens over the next 3 years with Nvidia, with the amount of buybacks they're going to do?
I don't know. I hope that they keep a very growth-focused mindset. Maybe
Yeah,
they acquire...
I hope they don't become Apple.
No, that's not what I'm saying. They can do both. They're in a hyper growth mode.
I hope they don't get obsessed with buybacks like Apple has, because that's the reason why Apple's not doing well anymore.
I prefer growth focused. I do like the business models of the core weaves at the end of the day. I honestly wish maybe a mistake of Nvidia's, and I never knew if it was a regulatory concern, was just not acquiring all of CoreWeave at the time. The actual recurring revenue style model for that takes away a lot of the cyclicality or volatility of Nvidia's earnings. So I wish that they acquired the entire business. Clearly they love that style, and CoreWeave essentially acquires only one style of chip, which is Nvidia. So potentially what I hope that they do is really heavily build out their venture arm and just fund the AI of the future, because obviously they know, like, they're firsthand. They understand that this is the next revolution, and that you've seen it with like Microsoft deals and Shopify deals of the past. They can even give their chips out with some level of not only cash payments, but also potentially equity or some sort of favorable equity deals, and start getting stakes in other businesses.
Yeah, Tanner, I think the main reason for not the full acquisition or something like that is just your other cloud server providers are going to see that more of a complete threat. And so, like, okay, even though these cloud server providers are building their own AI chips and can be seen that, but it's like, now we're going to believe, since you own CoreWeave completely, you're going to always give them the first chips first, and we're going to be put in the bottom line. So I think it was more of like a business protection, where their big customers would not have liked it.
They still are going to give CoreWeave the first chips as well. I mean, that the stake that they have is still beneficial. But no, I do agree.
After these earnings, we'll start with you, Steve. Do you see like a meaningful bear case at all for Nvidia?
No.
Not even a small bear case?
Would you rather buy Nvidia? What's it trading at? 30 times this year's earnings now? 28 times this year's earnings? Would you rather buy Nvidia here or Costco at freaking 50? Come on.
This is a little off topic, but the comments around the Singapore revenue being, what was it, 99% US based companies, I thought was a real, like, hey guys, look, this is not, Chinese smuggled sales or something like this that maybe people thought were happening in Taiwan or Singapore.
But that's what they said. They said their Singapore sales are 99% US companies.
Yeah, US based businesses.
That puts an end to that rumor, right? Because Nvidia can't be lying on, like, they literally can't be lying on audited financials if they say that.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, because I think Chamath recently came out and said, hey, you know what? Nvidia's earnings might be essentially a 50-50 split between US and China, where I think Nvidia's saying, actually, it's probably, 80% US right now. and hopefully there's more international build out, but it's still heavily US.
I think they called him to tell him to correct that shit the week after.
Yeah, I think so too. They did. They definitely did. And this is something, I mean, luckily for those in my channel, we've talked about it, that all these big players, your Dell, your Google, your Amazon, your Microsoft, all these players tend to have an entity or subsidy in Singapore, where it's more of like it's like their tax place or the Delaware, or what used to be the Delaware of the United States there. So that's where they would kind of get a lot of the billing, but a lot of those chips would always be shipped into other parts of the world. The only thing, like Tanner mentioned, is now we really got that confirmation of how much number it came in from.
Yeah, 99%. I mean, there's not a room for margin at all there.
Yeah. All right. Well, there we go. Are there any kind of big thoughts outside of that? I think it was a great quarter. That's kind of our conclusion.
Great quarter. I just want to see where it goes, but I'm a buyer. I'm not buying tomorrow, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're in the mid 130s at some point this week, but I'm going to be buying more. Like, this is long term. Great company.
Yeah, I think there's massive upside if the China deals, or if the China regulations change at all.
Yeah, and look, we don't know where regulation is going to end. Right now, it's a tug of war.
I personally think that they should, if you guys want American companies to have selection first, open up the entire Hopper architecture to China and allow Blackwell to be US and international first.
That's my hopes for these regulations, is as you get a better chip, the previous generation is nowhere near. I mean, right, the Blackwell in inference is 30 times better for it. So it's like, it makes sense, but I mean, sometimes with regulators, it takes longer for it to make sense to them. If I do want to say one point that really got to me that I didn't talk about it is Jensen is having its GTC Europe next week, and he does mention that there's a whole bunch of AI factories that have not yet been announced, and we might see some announcements maybe next week as he kind of does this Europe trade show. So there could be some nice sovereign AI bullish sentiments coming in the upcoming few days.
Yeah, look, the Saudi stuff was big. The China stuff is a headwind, but Trump, I mean, Jensen basically talked from both perspectives here. I think he knows that Trump's eventually going to use Nvidia as a pawn in the negotiations, but get him the ability to sell chips. And now you got Europe that he was talking up a lot of stuff they're doing in the region with new data centers and AI factories. So it doesn't look like the growth is slowing down. It looks like a quarter that got hit by the China stuff, but that should recover.
Tanner, you still think we get to 200 this year?
I mean, it's definitely possible if there's any cleanup and regulation with China. I think that's pretty clear.
200 will be 5 trillion market cap. But what exactly is that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, very close to that. Like maybe a little bit more. I do think that the company overall, being the infrastructure of the fourth revolution, like this will be a $10 trillion company one day. I still stand on that. And I'm going to hold shares till we get there. But, you know, they are a chip in a larger, you know, sort of political thing, which is not something that I could have foreseen. I mean, maybe I could have foreseen it, but I didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah.